Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of My Stoic Circus. And today we're going to talk about how important is your rationalization. That's right, rationale. Have you really given a thought of it's the receiving end, but what about the forwarding end of rationalizing? Are you giving yourself enough space, time, and tools to rationalize your decisions for a better and a daily you? So stay tuned here as we get started on My Stoic Circus. All right, everybody. So today is what is it? October 23rd, 2023. We're getting Monday started currently at 6:45 a.m. here in Stockton, California. That's right. So let me just greet everybody. Hey, good morning, James. I see you in the audience and those who are watching me live on YouTube. So if you are a YouTube subscriber, you can also find me on Clubhouse, a social audio app where people gather together, exchange thoughts and perceptions and all that great stuff. So you can find me live on there. So, what are we going to talk about? How do you rationalize today? So, the real question that I got from a daily Stoic, it says, "Are you displaying your best qualities?" That's right, your best qualities. Are you showing it at all times, or as best you can? And the quote that came along with it came from Marcus Aurelius's book, Meditations. So, if you want to get a copy of Meditations, here's a copy right here by Gregory Hayes. Well, good to find. And I also have another copy that is defined by and translated by George Long. So I like both versions. But for the sake of the conversation, here's the quote to get you thinking. This is what it basically says: people aren't in awe of your sharp mind, so be it. But you have many other qualities that you can't claim to have been deprived of at birth. Display those qualities in your own power: honesty, dignity, endurance, chastity, contentment, frugality, kindness, freedom, and persistence, avoiding gossip, and magnanimity, which I don't even understand what that word is, but I'm assuming it's on a grand scale of things. So let's kind of look at things a little bit. How do we actually get to making a decision on anything? And how are you led in making your decisions? A lot of times we want to come to our decisions or have a decision made in most circumstances, right? And how do we make our decisions? What are the elements of making our decisions? The first one would have to be experience. Do I understand? Have I been through? Or what do I perceive? Those things can be very, very easily confused. And they can also be very enlightening, but they also feed into the other elements of how we make our decisions, like logic. And what is logic defined? Logic defined is a reason through conducting and assessing according to a strict principle of validity. Now, that sounds like kind of smart way, but it's the best way of saying you've set up an equation to get an answer. Event plus response equals outcome, like Jack Canfield would say in his Chicken Soup for the Soul. But see, then there's the other parts, feelings, right? What's feelings? Now, we experience them all the time, but feelings is described or defined as an emotional state or reaction. Something happens, you stub your foot at the bed of a table or whatever, or I mean at the corner. Yeah, you hurt, or you see something very funny, and you just start laughing. That's an emotional response, which is a feeling, right? But then there's another one that tends to happen to get in our way often. That's impulse, right? Impulse is always apparent. It's always right there in front of you. Um, we have these gut feelings. Either it's because of our experience, our quick-witted way to making a decision. It comes in waves. But why is this so important to your rationalization. Well, considering the things that are going on a daily event scale, every Monday, many of us we go to work, we start the day. How do we start our day? Do you start with reflection, meditation, exercise? Do you get the body warmed up before you need to perform for your position, your role, or your job? Or what about getting the others ready, like getting the kids to school and so on and so forth? How are you going to really make today your best? And that is the rationale. First, I need coffee. I need something to wake me up warm. That's an automated response through a series of practical programming. You have done this for years. I've done it for years. I drink mud water and coffee. I've been drinking more coffee because I ran out of my mud water, but that's okay. But see, it's an automated response. I go make a warm cup of liquid, I pour something in it or mix it up, make it to the liking or my fashion, and guess what? I'm in enjoyment. And I take my time to get up in the morning. Now I get up usually around 4:30, and I've mentioned this before, but that's my rationale. And it's become an automated response. But some mornings I don't want to do that. Some mornings I drink a big 24 container full of water, right? And it's very important that I do that because I need hydration. So then, you look at impulse, and what is an impulse, right? A sudden or unreflective urge or desire to act, right? That's what impulses are. And what about instinct? Now, this is a very big one. Instinct is an innate or typical fixed pattern of behavior in animals to a certain stimuli. Hmm. I think that's very important. But so, how does that relate to the Stoic quote? Well, you look at all these things, and we use all of them as tools, whether you like it or not. You could be a certain age. Hey, according to my experience, I've always had to decide this way. It's always worked. Why am I going to go and change? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But then there comes a time where you have to feel like, you know what, maybe you're not in the ability to make that same style decision. So you rely on the other elements of your rationalization, right? And I like what the Daily Stoic kind of talked about today. He was talking about knowing and understanding the power of your choices. So if we look at the current events, there is a popular war right now going on between Israel and Hamas. Now, they won't say that it's Palestine, but Palestinians are within their ranks people part of the political faction of Hamas. And who is Hamas? Where are they funded? Would they have a war without funding? Probably not. Would Israel? Probably not. So you got these two bodies that one feels they're right, and the rules in which they live and hurt each other is crazy, in my opinion. One feels that historically it is their land more than the others. And actually they both feel that way, but their origins are indigenous. And yet they come from all walks of life. So why can't they share? And it's because of ideologies. It's because of beliefs, which is a big part of your rationalization. Hey, my experience, I was raised this way. My culture taught me my laws, my book, my rules, all those things, they came into play, and they're very important, right? And you have to think about, well, how do they get to that? And how do they keep fighting? And this isn't just isolated. This isn't an idea that's isolated with just what's going on there, but I'm using it the most relevant in current events. I'm not pro either side. I don't like what's happening on either side. I think it's crazy. But how do I not react? And there's things that have been in the news. As an example, there was allegedly a bombing on a hospital. And now that hospital is the garage. The garage was housing a lot of refugees. And the rationale was that no, it wasn't authentic. It did not come from Israel. It came from their own people. And what was interesting, and I'll bring it into light, was as I was reading, and I told a friend this just the other day, I said, basically, you know what? I'm going to take 3 or 4 days before I make a decision about that. Now, why is that? But their reflection was constantly on how I should react. I should believe you more than them. They're notorious for lying and they make up news. And I've been in through some conversations where people did that. But see, it's in their best interest to lure or to have people side with them. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. What if I don't side with you just with you on based on the initial reports? You can tell me that, ballistics show that it was not by the hands of Israel or not by the hands of Hamas by mistake. You know, it's a war of attrition. The information wars are right in our face. But what if and like I was telling my friend, I said, you know what? I'm going to take 3 days, 3 or 4 days before I even think about these things. And what I want to do is I want to see if things change. And guess what? They did. The reporting changed, the authenticity of the reports, who's responsible. So it's really thinking to yourself, if you're rationalizing something like that in current events, how does it actually affect you? Well, the way that things are reaching your feelings, touching your senses, right? The gut feeling like it can't be right, or this has to be wrong. How can they do this to each other? Well, how do you rationalize it? When you're in trouble, keyword, when you're in trouble with yourself or others, the first thing you got to do is how did you put your hand into it and how much attention you're giving it? Maybe it's not necessarily qualified to be your decision to make. Now, the most common reaction would be not my fight, not walking into it, staying out of it. What people say by you abstaining and not getting into it invites a lot more trouble. It could, but it's like if I stopped giving and making flabbergasted opinions about things, no matter what it is, like telling my family how to live, right? And yet my holdings are not as big as a rich man. Or if I am a rich man, that my methods are superior to theirs. And that to me is wrong. You know, invite people to be interested in your methods and to see how they'll discover and rationalize and measure out. Create standards, create tests. See if this is if it's true. See if what you're doing is the right thing by either information bias or feeling bias. Like that means from where you came from, can you make a rational decision without relying on impulse or immediate reflections on experience? Sometimes your experience can be wrong. How you experience something can be changed. We all grow up, is what I'm saying. So, how important is your rationalization is determined on the tools that you use on an everyday basis. Like in the United States, you have billions of ways of becoming satisfied, wealthy. There are plenty of ways to create business, work, a good way of living. And also, there's just as many to fail, right? Now, there's plenty of people telling you how to behave and how do we combat that? And, one of the things that I really had to take time and discover for myself was, you know what? Before I listen to my mentors and my peers about the people around me, keep a lot of my opinions to myself. Don't share too much, more than you need to. And it's very important when we understand what actually is here and how we, make a decision, you know, and when we make a decision, is it sober of other people's impressions? This is why it's so very important. Keep your goals guarded to yourself. The Stoics really talked about this. Seneca talked about it. Epictetus talked about it. Marcus Aurelius. And why did they do this? It was because of their rationale to not invite others' positions, lack of experience, or over experience. And I feel that that's very important for me because Life is a series of your own tests, your own rationalizing, but doesn't mean you need to be ignorant. Matter of fact, even the some of the discussions I got in the last couple weeks, the declarations of people being ignorant based on education alone is a big bias. I've met plenty of blue collar and white collar workers who can work well to each other and respect each other. But by the same means, one will say, your smart meaning and thinking got us into this mess. And they go back and forth. Well, you're just stupid because you're not wealthy. You haven't managed, um, you know, the way that you're living according to your housing. You're living in a bad neighborhood, or your culture, your religion represents something that prevents you from seeing the truth, creating those biases. Well, how do we come unbiased? Delay your reaction. Stop giving them something to pander on and hold on to, because the more that people have information on your decisions, the more they can leverage you. So it goes back to keep your goals really to yourself pretty much, or find the people that can help you get to the successful points of the goal existing and be in addition to you. Your maturity is a big deal. And with that being said, a friend of mine, Julie Loken, I got to thank her for giving me and gifting me this book. And it's called Navigating Leadership, Making a Pact with Excellence by by Rear Admiral Gary Hall. Now you can buy this on Amazon. I've only read a chapter or two, but there were a few things that really caught my attention, even in the introduction. Like, let's really look at, when your rationalization, when it comes to leadership, right? You're leading your way. People may follow you, or maybe you're in charge of people, maybe you work somewhere. And I like what Gary said, and he quoted JFK, says, conformity is the jailer of freedom and the enemy of growth. Ooh, why is that? Because people want to stay comfortable in their own box and not have to make a decision or a rational decision outside of their experience or their feeling or what they understand. But if you took what you already understand, be invited to, what are people really curious about? What can we find out? That might lead you. But I'll also quote him in saying, and Gary said, leadership must be born with a purpose and supported with character. When hardship prevails, that sense of purpose and strength and character are the secret weapons that combats the enemy. Well, who could be the enemy? Well, things and people who do not see your best interest. And then it comes down to a question, are they really your enemy, or they're just only seeking out their self-interest? But there's one more thing that I want to quote him on his page 7 of his introduction. When we are not the biggest champions of success, we find ourselves in places of self-sabotage and feeling like an imposter. So often, so we find ourselves tethering a teeter-tottering that swings from self-doubt to overconfidence. The truth is the hardest person to lead is yourself, right? Now, why is that so important? And thank you. I'm gonna finish reading this. Probably I'll this book is about 177 pages long. So really not too long. And I'm sure you can find it on Amazon for probably maybe 20 bucks. Let's look real quick. Let me do a quick search on Amazon, be able to share my screen here. So let's find the book. And I'm sure you can find this book in Barnes and Noble and other book dealers. So let's look up real quick here of navigating leadership. Let's see, with Gary E. Hall. Okay. And I'm going to have to find it. Let's see. Well, it didn't come up on the first search. Leadership. Let's see. Rear Admiral. Let's see how that changes. Well, I'm gonna have to talk to Julie about this, and she gave me the book, but I know she said we can find it on Amazon. So forgive me, I didn't do my due diligence and have this already ready, but I will find and I'll put a description in the show. Making a pact with excellence. Let's see if it comes up that way. Do. Forgive me. I am recording this live, and you know what? I did make this audible change with Gary E. Hall. Well, what if I just changed it a little bit? And this is something we can do. You just look up the names. Well, it's not going to find it that way. Anyways, I'll get back to you guys, and I'm sorry about that for not having it ready. Good morning, Sarah. How you doing? What did she say? She said magnanimity is the factor condition of being magnanimous or generosity. I like that. Okay, I can dig it. I can dig it. But that's a big word. To me, that's a $20 word. And what do I mean by $20 words? It means that you have to go out, look at it, and does it really flow to where, you know, it works for everybody. So gating leadership book, Gary E. Let's see. Here we go. Now we're talking. All right. So I'm going to share my screen because I'm like determined. Like if I can't be successful in showing my link, here we go. So let me pull this up. All right. Share to the screen. All right. So here's the book. You can buy it on Kindle for $5 or paperback for $19.99. And he's got 5 stars. Hey, great job, Gary. But like I said, I wanted to share this with everybody because I feel like, hey, and I'm going to give him a follow. I've lightly talked to him on Clubhouse, and I met him, like I said, through another friend. So it's an opportunity for you to go check it out. Um, and I'm really curious, being a Navy man myself, this guy reached to a rear admiral level. And the beautiful thing about that, these guys are specially selected. Not anyone gets to become rear admiral, but you know, these people had probably just to be selected a great level of navigating through networking within the military, um, good character skills, and being able to get men and women to follow along for the purpose of however the orders are distributed. And so it's a big thing. And I am a fan. Like I said, I've heard Gary a little bit, especially with my friend Julie. So if you get a chance, check out Navigating Leadership, Making a Pact with Excellence by Rear Admiral Gary E. Hall. And why is that important to our episode? So let me get to that. When you look at you're leading your own life, what's actually going to get you best to your own outcome? And sometimes you have to really defy your own egotistical self. Well, it's always been this way, and I don't have to do things that way. And one thing I will say is that when we look at our rationale, our selfish self wants to show up first. That's just a fact. It wants to show up. It doesn't want to be doubted. It doesn't want to be challenged. How does that relate to everything? Well, if you look at the current events, everyone wants to blame and give reason and fact and origins of why the decisions exist as they do. But when we look at, what takes place, how we actually make a decision on anything, our rational to self, how our inductive and deductive reasoning for anything is based on the experience, the logical equation, how much impulse reflected on those things, and do I really have the adequate experience that could help me make that kind of decision, right? And then there's also the instinct. My gut feelings telling me I can't do that. So we get ourselves into trouble constantly. So here's what I want to say. If you think about and looking at yourself and how you deal with things in the smallest way possible that expands out is be in control of your opinion. Don't get too involved in idle gossip. That means conversations and things that you cannot control and you cannot change people on. Look at what you control. Maybe not making an opinion about things, maybe not sharing as much, but looking at and be interested in things and people that can help you along. So when I get to my rational, and I've not been the greatest role model, there's been times as a parent that I rationalized one way, and I was wrong. Like I can remember when one of my daughters was in swimming, and I'm such a high performing person. Like I was an excellent athlete when I was in school and when I was in my youth. And I still take those lessons of what I learned to do that hard work, to get the dedication, to get a result, to being a champion. Because I don't think that that's really where people have been lately. How do you champion yourself? And it's by rationalizing your efforts and your outcomes. Maybe you failed the first 5 attempts at applying for a particular position or role. Maybe you got lucky on the first try, but couldn't repeat the same magic in results in what you. But can you accept things for as they are, where they come from, and decide I can improve upon this? Or maybe this is more than what I actually understand I can do. It takes time, it takes patience. And building that character is a huge thing. How we internalize our character by using wisdom, by using discipline, by using temperance, and you know, there's and I'm talking about the four virtues of Stoics, um, and justice. That means, can I work with things even when it does not work in my favor? Maybe I am to blame. Maybe I am the cause for distrust or destruction. It happens to us all. It's the way that we rationalize our humility to work for the greater good. And in today's age, it's I'm out for myself, create monopolies. But there are good people out there. Do good for others, even if you're not going to get paid. Seeing somebody as a person is very important. Like in the United States, we have some of the biggest populations of homeless people because they're not working and they've lost their way. They can't afford things. Well, it's up to us to lower the prices. Buy things that last. Don't buy things for fashionable or luster. Make it last for a long time. Maybe saving your budget, not having to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. Rationalizing the investment in yourself. Learning how to save. Learn if you say that I was never taught about money, then guess what? Now you have an objective. Learn about how to make and keep more money for yourself, but understand that this journey is based on your efforts and your reflections and your values. And when you look at the value of who you are and what you do, don't exchange it so easily just for anything. Be friendly, be polite, be respectful. And that's where we're coming from. So if you look at all these things and making a rational decision, just remember, give yourself, here's one big tip I will tell you. Delay, delay, delay unless it's your life is determined on it. Give yourself some space. Like, I don't like initially my feelings towards that, but I'm going to walk away and look and find out, how do I feel about it later? Maybe my experience or what I've gone through is affecting my way to decide about this, and which gets in my way, or how I teach my kids. I can't tell my kids to do one thing and I do another. What you say needs to be what you really represent, but giving yourself flexibility to learn, make a better choice. You can choose, as Ryan would say, you have the choice to be truthful. You have the choice, to be dignified. You have the choice to choose to endure things. You can choose to be happy. Right. These are choices. Doesn't mean that they always work out or they stay forever, but they are pivots. And remember that. Well, that's all the time that I have for my Stoic Circus. I hope you've enjoyed. If you are not a subscriber to my YouTube, make sure that you do so. If you are on Clubhouse, per se, and you're a viewer, give yourself an opportunity to join the house Mondays, usually between 6:30 and 7:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm making content coming to you live, but subscribe and like, leave a comment, and share with your friends. All right, everybody. Hope you all have a great day. Y'all take care.